we are back.
Yes,
Got a lot of stuff to cover this week. It's just general comments. No, nothing on World Cup, nothing movies in particular. But does it feel like it is a fairly tepid summer, movie-wise, entertainment-wise, so far?
I got to tell you, saw Ant-Man and Wasp. I thoroughly enjoyed that. We've already seen Star Wars kind of come and go. I don't know how Ant-Man and Wasp will
Avengers come and go.
Avengers come and go over the rest of the season. So yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of. I don't feel a lot of energy out there for anything in particular.
I don't either. I mean, things are making money. It's not like they're bombing, but it's just it all feels very sort of this, then that, then this, then that. There doesn't seem to be anything fun. I get it, and I guess it's because it's all stuff that we're familiar with. It's all Marvel. It's all Star Wars. It's all familiar. It's all franchise. There's nothing. The thrill of discovering something new isn't there.
Yeah.
I always go back to E.T.,
Yeah.
That moment when E.T. came out and it just blindsided everybody.
Yeah. The big movies, smaller movies. I mean, in the last year, I don't want to be too, last year when Get Out was roaming around and people were talking about that.
Too.
That was the thing.
They're water cooler movies.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be a water cooler movie.
And certainly the bigger they are, the less they're more, the less, I'll tell you what people are talking to me most about: television. Or streaming video, Netflix, whatever it is they're watching or streaming or whatever at the moment. That's what they walk up to me to talk to me about. Back in the day, it used to be movies. What are you watching? And now when they say, what are you watching? What they really mean is what television show you're watching. They don't really mean what movie should I go see.
True. Very true.
What are you going to do?
All right. Well, we'll jump right in. I've got a few things to cover, some anime and some music. On the music end, I got a really interesting Blu-ray here called Scream for Me, Sarajevo. And this is really interesting to me. This is from Eagle Vision and Universal. This is the story of a concert that took place in 1994, right while Sarajevo was under siege. And Bruce Dickinson and his band Skunk Works held this concert in the middle of a war zone during wartime to basically just defy the situation. And this is all about that moment, and it's a really, really interesting doc. It's 95 minutes long, and it's quite powerful. And I'm surprised that it took this long for this to come out. This reminds me, in many respects, of a short film that some friends of mine made. Not far after '94. It was probably a few years after that. I want to think maybe late 90s. Anyway, my friends James Harvey and Richie Stoves made a short called Rave Against the Machine, which is, the music scene in Sarajevo at the time. And that also was really powerful. I met them because I was on the AFI Film Festival jury for the shorts at the time. And their short was in competition. And it was just tremendous, and met them and we became friends. As it happened, that was also the year that a short by Jason Reitman was in competition, and he went on to be a big deal. And then also the short film that went on to be nominated for an Oscar by the New Zealand filmmaker whose name I'm totally drawing a blank on, because he won our freaking award. He just directed
Tawaki.
Just directed the Thor movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's a big deal now too. And he won our award. But anyway, Rave Against the Machine was there.
Sort of worked their way through the system and the way that it was done back in the day.
So Rave Against the Machine was the short, and Scream for Me, Sarajevo is this film. It's on Blu-ray, and it's really, really, really good, and it's powerful, and you forget what a cagey moment that was in European history, recent European history. So we got through it, but man, what a cool, defiant kind of punk spirit thing that is. Also got some classical stuff from Naxos, 3 from Naxos proper, and then 1 from Bel Air Classique, which is a line that they represent. This is Mozart's Lucio Silla, which is a musical drama in 3 acts. And, basically kind of an opera. This is performed by the orchestra and chorus of the Teatro Real de Madrid. The Mozart music is wonderful. I can't speak much to the dramatic performance of it. Didn't really do much for me, but the music, of course, is great. And then the 3 proper Naxos titles are Berlioz, Benvenuto Cellini, which it would be, and this is performed by the Rotterdam Philharmonic Orchestra and Sir Mark Elder, which would otherwise be, sort of whatever. It's a Berlioz opera. That's fine. Except that, who directed it?
Yeah.
Terry Gilliam.
Oh yes, yeah.
So,
well, Terry.
I didn't know Terry Gilliam was directing operas.
Yeah, you know what? It would give him a chance to do the thing that Terry really likes to do, which is to build stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's what Terry always did. Your Brazil
It's
and all
the
that kind of stuff.
what at a certain point you get to be a certain age and you don't want to sit on a film set all day every day
and look at a green screen with tennis balls and all that.
Yeah, so an opera kind of might scratch the itch.
Yeah.
And then Niccolo Jomeli, I guess it's pronounced, and the Oper Stuttgart performance of Il Volageso. I am not familiar with the composer. I am not familiar with the opera, but it's really kind of crazy and funky and wild, and I didn't really follow the story. This is an opera in 3 acts. But I mean, the music, I could kind of take it or leave it, but it's really quite an impressive staging. It's all about the story of the Queen of Armenia. And it's very interesting, dramatically, very, very interesting. The other one is a Respighi opera, La Campagna Sommersa. This is performed by the Teatro Lirica di Cagliari. Oy. Oy. The rest of the day, I'm going to have an easier time pronouncing these things. Anyway, performed in 2016. Also a lovely, lovely performance. I'm a big fan of Respighi. I think Respighi's music is really amazing. This is considered his greatest opera. I had never seen it. It's really mystical and fantastical, and the direction is great, and the costumes are amazing, and the music is just fantastic. Respighi wrote really, really great music, and I love it. So now to some anime. Got a lot of interesting stuff here, primarily from Section 23 and the Sentai Library, but not exclusively from Sentai Library. From Made in Japan is A Spirit of the Sun, which is this really, really interesting 2-part television special directed by Masayuki Kojima, who some people may best know for Made in Abyss and Black Bullet. Anyway, this is like the perfect storm of disasters in Japan. You know, everything in Japanese anime is all about what disasters may happen in Japan. Everything in Japanese cinema is about what horrible things may happen to us. It's a post World War II anxiety that finds its way into all of this stuff. And in this one, there's a huge earthquake and Mount Fuji erupts all at the same time.
Yeah,
and it literally rips Japan in half. And this is now about the geopolitical aftermath of that. There's, China comes in, takes advantage, and occupies half. The United States occupies the other half. It's preposterous, obviously, in every way, but it's not meant to be taken literally. You're supposed to look at this as a sort of representation of Japanese anxieties. And the animation is superb, and the storytelling is fascinating, and what it says about certain issues in the contemporary psyche of Japan. It's really, really interesting. So that is called A Spirit of the Sun. It's really, really, really good. We also have Love and Lies, complete collection from Sentai. This is, more high school politics, the usual Japanese anime obsession, and it's a little soapy. A couple of kids, little teenage romance stuff, and then it gets into some weird tangents where there's like some spy action and stuff that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Not my thing necessarily, but I'm sure some people will dig to it. Love and Lies. Let's see. Magic of Stella is sort of standard young skewing Japanese anime, more high school politics, more kind of, like Mean Girls politics. It's very cute and bubbly, and the girls are cute and bubbly with their little uniforms, and it is what it is. Yeah. It's nothing particularly challenging. It skews young, and it's fine. Initial D, Legend Legend 3 Dream, Blu-ray and DVD combo set. It's not as great as Speed Racer, better animation. I'm not really into the whole Initial D thing, but there's more of that for those who really love the speedy stuff. Grimoire of Zero, Grimoire, Grimoire of Zero. This is 12 episodes on 2 discs from Sentai, and this is all right, man. This is cool. This takes place in a kind of a mythical world. You have to sort of get used to the rules and the parameters of this particular mythical world. But it's all about the searching for a missing mystical book called the Grimoire of Zero, and it's about you got witches and you've got seekers and all the usual kind of Joseph Campbell stuff going on, and part of this search for this mystical book and all the magic that will ensue. And it's, it takes a little bit of absorbing, but it's all quite well done and very, very nicely animated. The last three include Bang Dream, complete collection. Bang Dream is more. This is like. You know what this is? This is like a Japanese version of Josie and the Pussycats. That's the only thing I can say. It's young girls in high school and wanting to be rock stars, and that's basically it. There's just nothing else to it. The music's cute, the animation's fine, the girls are adorable. What do you want? Another great one from Made in Japan is the Tibetan Dog, which is from the same people who did more of the people who did Black Bullet. The story here is about this kid. His mom's died, and he's now being raised by his dad, and he's working as a shepherd, and develops this friendship with this golden mastiff. And it's kind of a kid and his dog story, but it's really, really nicely done. And it's just very, very sunny and great animation, especially the dog. And the fact that it takes place in Tibet is sort of a novel thing as well. So that was quite enjoyable. And then, if you are a fan of Garo, we have the Garo special, Beast of the Demon Knight, which is a live-action version of the Garo thing, which actually feels like a slightly better than usual Power Rangers movie, but it still feels very Power Rangery. It's good, it's well done, but it's very Power Rangery, and I somehow this stuff feels like it should be. Maybe they should have stuck with the animation on this one. Anyway, that's the Garo television special, Beast of the Demon Knight. And now, Tim, let's move on to some new movies.
New movies. The biggest new movie, I don't know, whatever, recent days, was this Emily Blunt, John Krasinski horror film, actual husband and wife there, A Quiet Place.
Man, I didn't see it.
I happened to be on the radio for this.
Oh, my goodness.
I saw it for the radio. And I'm sitting there watching the screening of it. Mm-hmm. And I could tell everybody was going nuts for it. I'm watching this movie, and I'm thinking to myself, this is just the dumbest movie I've ever seen, ever. But I could tell it was going to be one of those movies where people just decided they didn't care.
Yeah.
How stupid this movie is. And to be frank with you, I knew it was a dumb movie from before I went to see it, because I was watching the trailer, and a moronic thing happens in the trailer. So I can speak to that thing without ruining the movie for people who haven't seen it yet. And Certified Fresh is a big old hit. Everybody loves it, so it doesn't really make any difference what I say. But here's the thing. You live on a planet that's been invaded by giant ear monsters. Our ears. They hear noises, and when they hear a noise, they attack and kill and eat the thing that made the noise. Because that's all they really are big freaking ears with teeth. Okay. And you have to be quiet, A Quiet Place.
Oh dear!
And the way the movie begins, this happened 3 or 4 years ago, and the Earth has been inundated by these creatures, and everyone has sort of acclimated themselves to being real quiet. So what does John do with the family? He takes the family out for a little walk.
Oh, good grief!
And while he's walking with the family, where does he put the little bitty baby boy? The baby boy, the little boy. He's way back there, playing with his little toys. And John is walking around. This is in the world inundated by the giant monsters who will eat you if you make any noise. And when his son makes a noise because he's a child, and the giant monster is, and he has, you see it's all in the trailer. I'm not ruining anything. And I'm thinking to myself, well, John, here's a thought. A, leave the family at home. Because you know what, that kid's gonna make some noise. I'm almost certain about it. But for whatever reason, if you got to take the family with you, you probably want to keep the little noisy one with you. And everything that happens in this movie is just one thing after another of these people doing the dumbest things you could possibly do if you're in the circumstance that they happen to be in. They got stuff on walls that the kid can climb up and pull down. And he's got to catch the kid. So, no, don't do. Anyway. I'm over myself. Everybody loves this movie. As a matter of fact, it says right here, a masterpiece that will scare generations. I don't know. Somebody thinks that, not me. It is a 4K Ultra HD movie with all kinds of wonderful special effects on it. If you've already seen it and you know you like it, just go ahead and enjoy the rest of it.
Gosh.
I hate that stupid movie. How I hate it when I find myself in direct opposition to movies to everybody else, because you just feel like you're an outlier there. But what the hell are you going to do? This is a neat little movie called Zen Dog by a guy named Rick Darge. Rick Darge, Darge. Is a cinematographer mostly. If you look him up, you'll see that he's been a cinematographer on many, many things that you have watched and enjoyed. And he's directed a few movies, including this little indie film. His films can be sort of interesting. They're a little bit esoteric. And mostly about people seeking some sort of meaning in life. That's what this one's about. It's a guy who takes himself on a sort of a cross-country trip, a sort of an imaginary cross-country trip, a sort of a daydream, hallucinogenic cross-country trip in a Volkswagen, a sort of psychedelic Volkswagen. And it's one of those sort of, you feel like it's a sort of film that might have been made in the 60s or something like that. He's one of those kind of guys, kind of floaty and whatnot. Commentary track with the director and the actors on the film. And, if you're into this kind of thing, it can be a lot of fun. It's a nice, floaty little film, but, you got to be into it.
So I don't want to be a jerk about this, but there's a movie called Keep the Change from Kino Lorbert's on Blu-ray. This actually won the top award at the Tribeca Film Festival. And let me be on the record. I really admire the film. It's directed by Rachel Israel, and it indulges in a very unusual conceit. Again, the film's called Keep the Change. However, I don't think it works very well, and I don't think it works very well because the conceit that makes it so brave is also, I don't want to say it fails, but it's somewhat anti-dramatic. This is a here I am. I'm going to sound like a jerk, but this is it's a love story between two people who have autism. And the device here, I don't want to call it a gimmick because it's not.
No.
This was very intentionally.
And this does happen.
This does happen. The both actors in the movie are actually people who are on the spectrum. So that does give it a certain authenticity and verisimilitude. And my sense is also that it's not necessarily scripted in many respects. This is sort of fly on the wall stuff and somewhat improvised and written to some degree for these particular characters. At the same time, as for a romantic comedy, which is what this aspires to be, it because of that, it is somewhat inaccessible. So it is. I felt almost anthropological in watching this, as opposed to being involved and engaged
in a piece of art, cinema anyway.
And I got to thinking, okay, what if they had done it the other way? What if you do the usual thing and you get some, actors who are not on the spectrum and you cast them? Would it have felt fake? Would it have felt exploitive? Would it have worked? And I got to thinking about that TV movie from many, many years ago. And you'll remember this, A Different Kind of Love, or whatever it was called, with Sean Cassidy and Linda Pearl, who played two people with Down syndrome. And they fell in love. And all I could think of were the commercials where Sean Cassidy says, "I want to marry her, Dad." And I just thought, that's horrible. That's terrible.
And we don't really live there anymore. And of course, we had Corky on Life. The television series that ran for many years. Who was on the spectrum.
Was it It's Life or
it's
Life?
Something like that. Yeah.
Life Happens.
Life Happens. Yeah, Life Happens. I think it's okay. And so there's a thing.
So I don't know what to say about this in that sense. I admire that she went to that particular place and said, I'm going to make a movie about autistic romance, and I'm going to cast people who have autism. I think that's admirable. I think it's really admirable. But at the same time, you really have to make an effort to be engaged by the film. It doesn't work.
And what's odd is if it were actually a doc, say this happened, these two people, and she fly it on the wall then it would be a deeply penetrating movie. Because there would be no performance in it.
You can tell I'm still struggling with it, and I don't have a problem with that. So I mean, I'm still kind of wrestling with it, whether or not it's a failed experiment or whether or not it's not a failure. It's just a noble experiment. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, there it is. It's called Keep the Change.
Yeah.
And let me just hit this one out of the park a little bit, too. From Scream Factory is The Cured with Ellen Page and Sam Keeley. It's more zombie stuff, where I'm getting a little bit tired of everybody really, really going to extreme ends to try to find new angles, new ways of entering the zombie thing. And this is the new zombie thing, right? It's not dead coming back to life. This is the whole virus thing that we've been living with.
World War Z type zombies.
All that stuff, 28 days later. Yes, so there's a virus, turns people into zombies. They go around eating each other. And
slow zombies or fast zombies. That's the only differential nowadays with zombies.
Yeah,
World War Z were fast zombies.
These aren't really fast zombies. They're sort of angsty existential zombies, I guess. You know, because people like become unafflicted here, and that's part of the thing is that you know there's actually finally a cure, and people who have de-zombied now find themselves regretful over the things they did when they were zombies.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I'm gonna have a kid. I used to be a zombie, and I'm over it now. I'm in a 12-step program.
Yeah, I ate my cousin,
and I ate my cousin. I feel really bad about it, and I'm having nightmares. You know, it's that kind of. Anyway, I mean, it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting novel take. I don't think it works terribly well, but it's got Ellen Page in it, and anytime Ellen Page is in a movie, I think that's great.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know, I can sort of cling to Ellen Page and get through it. And
the thing of it is that movie
to how good of an actress she is.
You know, it's a horror movie, but it's a dramatic horror movie.
Yeah,
and it should have been a comedic horror movie.
There you go.
Gonna do that. Shaun of the Dead. It.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's the way you do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to knock off a couple of these?
Hit them.
Chappaquiddick. Jason Clarke, Kate Mara, Ed Helm, Bruce Dern in a film that explores Teddy Kennedy's the period during which Teddy Kennedy's accident in Chappaquiddick happened. During which a young woman was killed.
Jason Clarke playing Teddy Kennedy, and he looks like Teddy Kennedy. That's the thing.
That's all. And this is a very well movie, very well performed. That's absolutely true about this movie. The thing that bugged me about this movie had to do with the perspective, the point of view, the understanding of this moment by the filmmakers. I think the filmmakers had a flawed understanding of the moment. Now, I get it. This movie is called Chappaquiddick, and the central figure in the context of the movie is Teddy Kennedy and all of the people around him. Sure. This was right after the death of not long after the death of John.
Yeah.
And a lot of pressure was on him. Was he going to run for the presidency? The stuff with his father and all this kind of stuff. And then this whole moment happens. What this movie is concerned with deeply, though, is how Teddy Kennedy felt. What it must have been like for Teddy Kennedy. I mean, it gets even into a bit of a poor Teddy Kennedy sort of mode there for a while. And yes, it does deal with the ideas of his angst and sort of his brittleness and the way he was sort of self-serving. It speaks to some of that, but mostly it's thinking about Teddy Kennedy. And I'm not thinking about Teddy Kennedy. I'm thinking about Mary Jo. That's who I'm thinking about. Yeah. I'm thinking about Mary Jo's mom. I'm thinking about Mary Jo's dad. I'm thinking about everything that's not going to happen in Mary Jo's life. I know what happens in his life. He lives a venerable life, gets called the Lion of the Senate, dies, 50, 60 years later with Barack Obama at his funeral. He does okay. And I got a knot in my stomach even right now about Mary Jo. So I don't know. There's not enough of this movie that is about what happened to Mary Jo. Too much of it is concerned with Teddy Kennedy. But I get it. He's the historical figure. Chappaquiddick on Blu-ray and DVD. A little bit on it. Special features, reckoning and revisiting of Chappaquiddick, bridge to the past, the editing of the film. But even in that, they don't really go there. There are people who have simply rose above the actual actions of their life. Now, Teddy, don't get me wrong, I don't hate Teddy Kennedy. He did a lot to redeem himself. Yeah. But you know what? You actually can't redeem yourself from what you did, Teddy. You didn't succeed at redeeming yourself. You worked hard at trying, and for that I respect you. Yeah. But you still failed. This movie don't know that.
And then we got Finding Your Feet on DVD, not on Blu-ray, with a lovely, lovely cast. Imelda Staunton, Timothy Spall, Celia Emery, David Heyman, Joanna Lumley. It's a great bunch of British actors. You got to love them all. Yeah. They're wonderful. And Imelda Staunton is just so wonderful in the middle of this, as is Timothy Spall. This is one of those Best Exotic Marigold Hotel type movies where a bunch of aging British actors who want to prove that they can still be as vivacious and vigorous as everyone else, they do one of those late life romance things. And it's fine. I love Imelda Staunton. The whole idea is that Imelda Staunton has been the faithful wife of this very distinguished British figure in politics and society, and finds out that he's been having an affair with her best friend, no less. So she, bails on him and jumps right back into the scene and discovers a life outside of high society and aristocracy,
Yeah.
and you know, she discovers of all people Timothy's Paul.
And I got to tell you, he looks fantastic in this movie.
Does, but my goodness, it goes to a schmaltzy place.
Oh, it's but like you
Yeah.
said, best Marigold and all those.
it's one
Some
of
of them
those.
work and some of them don't. But you know,
And
I'll take you all the way back to what was it? April, something about April.
Enchanted April,
Enchanted April,
which is still the best of all those.
yeah, you know, it's So there you go.
Anyway, directed by Richard Lon Crane, who of course was a big deal in the '80s, and he still got it. It's a sweet film, but my goodness, it's schmaltzy and predictable. But whatever.
What are you going to do? Lean on Pete. This was a film that I rather liked. Steve Buscemi and Chloe Sevigny in this movie, and this young man, Charlie Plummer, who also played the young kidnapped guy in All the Money in the World of the family there that got kidnapped. So, a really interesting movie. This movie is very slow. Is not exactly turgid, I don't think, but because things happen in it. But it's a very slow movie. Pete is a horse, young man. He has this father who's just a loser, not a bad guy, but a loser. And he's just this fragile young man, and a thing happens, and he has to take care of himself. He meets this guy, Steve Buscemi, who has these horses, old ass horses that he still races, makes us a few bucks every now and again. But generally speaking, what he's mostly doing is sending those horses off to the glue factory down there in Mexico. And this boy sort of falls in love with this particular horse named Pete, and he kidnaps this horse. He's going to try to take this horse and ride this horse halfway across the country to his auntie's house, in hope that his auntie will remember him. And be willing to take care of him. And that's all we're really doing. We're with this boy and this horse on this long trip across rugged country as he's kind of hiding from the police and other folks and trying to get to his auntie. And he's talking to this horse. And I swear to God, this movie just about broke my heart in every possible way. But you got to be ready to sit there and watch a long, slow, deeply meditative movie.
There's room for that.
About it. Yeah, I think so. And and if you're willing to, you're really going to find yourself in a lovely movie. Lean on Pete. Not a lot on here. Special feature searching for home. The making of Lean on Pete.
Paul, Apostle of Christ, is yet another one of the. We've had there's been an undertow of biblical movies in the last few years, kind of ever since Mel Gibson launched the subgenre, as one might call it. This is written and directed by Andrew Hyatt. It is mainly based on biblical moment when the Apostle Paul was aging and a prisoner of the Emperor Nero and being routinely visited by Luke, who, of course, wrote the Gospel of Luke and was a physician. Jim Caviezel plays Luke. James Faulkner plays Paul. Olivier Martinez, the French actor, plays a Roman centurion who is sort of in... he's the one whose faith may or may not be swayed by this figure that he's supposed to be overseeing the incarceration of. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting history here. It's not overly evangelical, and I don't mean that in the terms of in the true word that it doesn't overly evangelize anything. It is really trying to be much more a sort of historical representation with a smattering of faith content. So it's not going to beat you over the head with anything. But it's also not terribly well done, I've got to be honest.
Interesting that Jim Caviezel is in it. Jim
well, he's a devout Catholic, and he
keeps popping up.
Yeah, he cares about these things. Andrew Hyatt wrote and directed it. The screenplay isn't bad. The direction is really kind of lackluster and a little bit sloppy, and that prevents it from having that classic feel that you just want it to have. You want to feel something biblically epic, and it doesn't really ever rise to that. What really keeps it going, to be honest, is James Faulkner, who is a great British actor. Some people might remember him from Downton Abbey. He played a Jewish industrialist, and there was a whole ethnic conflict around that and the possible intermarriage of two families, and he's an amazing performer, and he owns this movie, and you just keep wishing that the movie would rise to the level of his performance, but it doesn't. So it's fine. It's okay if the subject matter interests you. It's to be recommended, but I just wish it were better.
Interesting. Midnight Sun. This is a sweet little movie. Bella Thorne in this movie, and it's just ridiculously romantic and only loosely possible, I suppose. Patrick Schwarzenegger all in the film. Arnold Schwarzenegger's very handsome and ridiculously lucky son. With Maria Shriver. So this is about a young woman who can't go out in the sun during the day. She spends all of her days at home, sort of locked in her house, and can only go outside. She has a rare disease, and going out in the sun would kill her. That's a real thing, by the way, that actually exists. She meets a handsome young man, again played by Patrick Schwarzenegger, named Charlie. And he has been nuts about her forever, sort of watching her from afar, and he decides to to give it a shot. And it's about their whole little summer romance. It's a sweet, sweet movie, kind of in the vein of those sort of the fellow that does movies, The Notebook, and all of those kind of movies. That guy, kind of in the vein of that stuff, only not him. And it's a sweet little movie. Check it out if you get a chance. Midnight Sun.
All right, got 3 genre things here, and they're all, I guess, perfectly fine. Don't Grow Up has some of these movies. Don't Grow Up's on Blu-ray, and this is yet another. This is like a zombie movie and a post-apocalyptic movie all kind of rolled into one. It's well done. It's perfectly fine. It
moves pretty quick.
It moves okay. Yeah, it moves fine. If you're a genre fan, you'll dig it. And it's a bunch of kids who just have they go partying, and then when they skedaddle and wind up, in this little town, they discover that the world's been destroyed and people are zombies.
Yeah, you know what's good about it? It's 81 minutes long with the titles, which means it's like 75 minutes long.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
And you know what? Yeah. I'll do anything for 75 minutes. So knock yourself out with that.
We have a Wolfcop sequel called Another Wolfcop with the greatest tagline: dirtier, hairier. That's it. Just dirtier and hairier. I
love the notion of another wolf cop because it implies a previous wolf cop.
I just don't know why Kevin Smith keeps. He's like the he's the cameo king now. He shows up in all this stuff, and that's what we talked about this. There's an episode of this last season of The Flash where Kevin Smith and what's his face show up. It's like really we have Clerks cameos on The Flash,
but they have insinuated themselves now into. They're from our generation.
Yeah.
They have insinuated themselves into 3 generations of young people.
Yeah,
there are 21 and 20-year-olds who know who they are and identify with them as those characters. And I'm like, that's almost kind of brilliant.
Yeah,
if you figure out a way to do that, God knows I didn't do it.
Yeah.
You know what's good about Wolfcop?
Yeah.
82 minutes long.
Well, there it is. It's another Wolfcop. I really don't know why I need to give a summation to that. Future World. Tim, did you see Future World?
I did not.
Okay, I don't know how James. It's 82 minutes long. 88, actually.
88 minutes long.
It's true. That's true. It's under 80 minutes.
Keep it under 90, baby, and I'm with you.
Oh, gosh. This is another post-apocalyptic thing, and you look at this and you go, how is there room for all these post-apocalyptic movies?
It's James Franco, dude.
Then you go, wait, James Franco. James, didn't you make 18 movies last year? When did you have time to even make this?
You know what? This might be one of those ones where he got a little bit in trouble on because he was a little loosey-goosey with the ladies.
Oh,
I think this might be one of those.
Well, it's James Franco.
Oh, yep, it's definitely one of those. I recognize the name.
Yeah. So James Franco, Lucy Liu, and Mila Jovovich.
And Snoop Dogg, dude. You left Method Man, dude. It's just
yeah.
There's something about that about him.
Yeah.
And you and I disagree about him. There's something about him that has always intrigued me and that I've always found a bit of fun. That he'll do a daytime soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
He will adapt Faulkner.
Yeah.
Because he actually read the Faulkner.
Yeah.
And then he'll do something as perfectly asinine as this.
Well, this is like a dirty second tier Mad Max kind of thing. And if you're watching this, you're not watching it because it's good. You're watching it just because it's got all the aforementioned in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. There's a whole bunch of people. There's even a character called Ash, which is a direct reference to Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Right. Which, anyway, whatever. But I rag on that movie even as I pick up He's Back, Escape Plan 2. With Stallone and Batista because he couldn't get Arnold to come out and do another one. Like that. So, it's kind of weird to be stabbing James Franco in the neck while I'm holding this movie in my hand. With Stallone, an Academy Award winner himself, by the way. Those boys both did that. Anyway, this is just another one of those wacky movies with Stallone in prison, blah blah blah, and all whatever. Lots of special features. Escape Plan 2, Hades, building the robot of Escape Plan 2. Well, they built it with CGI. That's how they built it.
Yeah,
that's a couple of things they did. Whatever.
All right, so we got a few. We got some TV here, real quickly. A few things from British TV that came in following last week's stuff. We've got the complete 5th season of the masterpiece mystery series Endeavour. That's Endeavour, O-U-R, with Sean Evans and Roger Allam, which is a really terrific show. It takes place, of course, if you don't know, it takes place in late 1960s. This is now the beginning of 1968 in this 5th season. And it's all about, it's a detective show, but it's a detective show with the 60s vibe to it. So it feels like a realistic. It lives in the same world as the Avengers and all those old cool shows.
Kind of pop, but serious. But
pop,
serious.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pop, but serious. It's a perfect way to put it. All at the Cowley police station. And you know what? What I like about it is the thing that you get when you do period stuff. Mad Men being one of those as well, which is that when you strip away all the modern day technological stuff, when your detectives can't use cell phones and can't use computers and can't use CSI and all that kind of stuff, it feels a little more real.
It becomes a gumshoe show. The ones we grew up watching. I think I called you the other day where I was chit-chatting. I was watching the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
And the Rockford was not that long ago. I mean, I think it maybe starts in the late 70s and sort of runs through the early 80s, right?
Yep.
So pre-cell phone, pre all of that. And Jim Rockford actually has to make phone calls and open a phone book.
That's right.
And go and ask people things.
That's right.
He even goes to the library in an episode of the Rockford Files, which is just astounding to me. You never see that stuff anymore.
Yep. Then we have Series 2 from Acorn TV of Delicious, starring Dawn French and Amelia Fox. And, this is the story of two women after, who basically are running a hotel now. And it all happens, after the passing of Ian Glenn, who played the chef, and there's a whole drama that goes into that. If you didn't see series 1, I won't get into it. But in any case, this is just the ongoing drama of trying to run the hotel. Dawn French looks terrific. She's lost a lot of weight, by the way, folks, and she looks great, and she's always wonderful, and I love Dawn French. And Amelia Fox is great too. So anyway, there's a whole lot of stuff that's going on with the hotel now, and the police are looking into a thing, and the things may not be going quite so well. It's it's a little bit of a soap opera, but it's still really, really well done. It's quite good. And then the legal drama Striking Out, also from Acorn TV, is now also in its 2nd season. This is an Irish show, and I think the only thing that is a little bit of a struggle is that there are differences in some of the ways that the Irish legal system works versus what you might be familiar to if you're in the United States. So, but a lot of the issues are the same. There are a lot of, there's divorce, and there's, immigration issues, and there are a lot of things here. So it continues to be a really solid show with really, really great acting, and that's Striking Out Series 2.
1980, The Martian Chronicles short-lived series here. I rather enjoyed this back in 1980. This is one of those things that I actually remember from 1980. A fantastic cast: Rock Hudson, Bernie Casey, Darren McGavin, Roddy McDowell, Bernadette Peters.
I remember watching this the first time it was shown.
It was really interesting. And of course, it's in some ways probably Ray Bradbury's and Richard Matheson, of course, wrote the second episode or another episode of it. One of his most extraordinary and visionary stories. This was, and trying to bring it to the small screen was pretty amazing back in the day. Michael Anderson, of course, was on Logan's Run and Orca. I mean, it's just really, really a neat show. And this is later Rock Hudson, not long before we lost Rock. I think we lost Rock maybe in 86, 87.
Yeah.
So it's just a few years before that.
Yeah.
But it really is just an absolutely intriguing sort of conception for a television program. Basically, a probe is sent to Mars. There are Martians on Mars. There's some sort of internecine battles. One of the Martians gets angry when his wife has something of an erotic dream about meeting these folks, and then he kills one of the astronauts. A second expedition is sent, and it sort of goes on from there. It's really, really intense stuff.
The thing I remember really loving about this was that this was done right in the wake of the Viking Explorer, the Viking lander.
Yes.
And you wonder, well, wow, because I remember reading the Martian Chronicles when it was first written, and I thought, well, now that we know so much more about Mars, how are they going to How are they going to sort of deal with that? And
Yeah.
the great thing is they totally incorporate the Viking into the beginning.
Yeah.
They say, if only it had landed just a little bit further to the west. Or,
They'd have found these marshes.
It would have found, yeah. And I'm like, all right, good on you. I'm not buying it, but at least you made the effort. So that's good. One of the best Lifetime movies ever, and that's saying quite a bit, is I Am Elizabeth Smart. Elizabeth Smart produced and also narrates this, and this is her story.
Yeah.
And so she keeps a good handle on it so they don't become exploitative with it. Alana Bowden plays Elizabeth Smart in this, and it tells straight up the story exactly as it happened. And it's really, really very well done. Skeet Ulrich plays the psycho Brian David Mitchell who kidnapped her incredibly well. It's a great character part for him. And hopefully he makes something of a comeback with this. And Deirdre Lovejoy plays Wanda Barzee, his wife and accomplice. Anyway, it's really well done, and it's like almost too good for Lifetime, frankly, to be honest, because I think they went to Elizabeth Smart, and she, made sure that as having all the creative reins, that it went in the right direction.
Yeah.
And
it reflected the reality as she knew it.
It reflected the reality. I know people who were part of the search when she first disappeared, who were running around looking for her. And it was a shattering thing for those that community up there. So anyway, I Am Elizabeth Smart on DVD.
We're going to try to knock off a few of these foreign films.
Yeah, let's do foreign.
If we have a little time.
Yeah.
I particularly want to talk about this Josephine Baker film because it was lost for a very, very long time. They actually shot this movie. The film is called The French Way. And they shot this film in 1940 while the city was being bombed. And it's really a wonderful film. The narrative goes something like this. There's this fella who says that his mother had an affair with Napoleon, and he's involved with this argument with this biographer of Napoleon, who insisted his mother did not have an affair with Napoleon. So it goes back and forth, and he's in love with the guy's daughter, and there's this cabaret singer, of course, played by the extraordinary Josephine Baker, named Zazu. Because she always had names like Zazu, and whenever she was in these movies, Josephine made a lot of movies and did a great many things. She was always absolutely entrancing and fantastic in them. On the back of the box here, it quotes Pablo Picasso regarding Josephine Baker: tall, coffee-skinned, ebony eyes, legs of paradise, a smile to end all smiles.
Wow.
Pablo Picasso. And you see, that's why he was slick and got all the ladies. Pablo said stuff like that. I could never in a million years come up with something like that. This is a perfectly captivating film. And again, only showed for a little while in the United States. And even when it showed then, they had shortened it by 3 or 4 minutes and cut out some of the more sexual stuff in the movie. So it's completely restored. It is called Sabu. It's only 74 minutes long, black and white, 1940, in French with subtitles.
And we've got a couple from the Milestone collection. Milestone just continues to do unbelievably great stuff. So the great Japanese director Hirokazu Koreeda recently won the Cannes Film Festival, apparently a very, very deserved honor for his long and distinguished career. And Milestone has now released, in collaboration with Oscilloscope, a new Blu-ray of his very, very first film, Maborosi, which is an absolutely delightful movie. This is from 1995, and it's really, all of his movies are very meditative. They're they're incredibly heartfelt, but they're also deeply humanistic, and they have these dark edges that somehow never feel dark. There's always like hope behind the curtain in his movies, and this is one of those. Makiko Esumi plays a woman who suffered a horrible tragedy growing up and now suffers a tragedy as an adult, and this is how she struggles to hold her family together in the wake of all of that. And where it goes, you would never imagine. It's just it goes into directions that defy what you usually wind up with in anything stereotypical, which is why Koreeda is such a great filmmaker. He knows how to take stories into directions that just don't seem logical, and somehow they always feel right. Also from Milestone is Rocco and His Brothers, the classic Luchino Visconti movie. This is a new 4K restoration on Blu-ray. and wouldn't exist if not for Martin Scorsese getting behind it. You know, anything Visconti is a must see, and this is a wonderful, wonderful restoration. It is a tremendous story that just never gets old. This is a long movie. This is from 1960, and like most of these sort of epic sagas in 1960 on both sides of the Atlantic, this is 3 hours long. So get ready for it. It is, it is drawn from sort of all of these great epic European novels to tell this fascinating story, and it's inspired generations to tell these kinds of stories. It's really extraordinary. And on top of everything else, you get a Nino Rota score that is just one of his very, very best. And everyone involved in this does absolutely sterling work. It won an award at the 1960 Venice Film Festival. Rocco and His Brothers, one of the very, very best films ever made by the great, legendary Luchino Visconti.
I have in my hand Ishmael's Ghost. Now, this is an interesting.
I still haven't seen.
And what's
do
weird
I need
is
to?
You do, because you, like me, will be connected to these films all the way back to their genesis, which begins with My Sex Life. My Sex Life, or How I Got Into an Argument. All right, so that's like 1996, and then there's a film called
Those are titles.
These are titles.
You're not bragging.
I'm not bragging. No.
Okay.
1996 film. Arnaud Desplechin film, right?
Yeah,
Okay, 1996. Then he makes a film in 19. I'm sorry, that's 19. No, that's 1996. Then in 2000, he makes Esther Khan. Esther Khan is related to the previous film. Then he makes Kings and Queens in 2004. Then he makes My Golden Days in 2015. And then this film last year, 2016, Ishmael's Ghost. All of these films are related and connected. They all more or less are related to a character called Paul Detlef. And in Paul's brother and Paul's brother-in-law, and in these very, very complicated films that are all about Paul and his loves and his life over many, many years. All of these films, by the way, involve Matthew Almeric too. He's in all those films. He's going all the way back, and he plays different people in different films. But most of the time, he's playing either Paul Detlef. In this one, he's playing Ishmael. Ishmael is a character that shows up in both My Golden Days and in Queens and Kings. And if you're paying attention, he's also in My Sex Life.
All right.
And these through lines, this is all way more fun if you follow all the through lines all the way back from that original film. Then it makes sense all by itself. Now, in this film, you have Marianne Cotillard, and it's a really, really interesting storyline. She was married to Ishmael. She left 20 years ago and has been gone for 20 years. Ishmael has been an assistant filmmaker and an assistant to her very, very famous filmmaker father. He was destroyed by the disappearance of his daughter, and obviously Ishmael by the disappearance of his wife. And then suddenly in this film, she reappears. She's back in his life.
Nice.
That's a movie there.
Okay.
When you take that movie and you connect it to all of those other movies I just told you about, you find yourself, and what we can see now from hindsight, has really been this one big film that he's been making for the last 22 years. It's all just one big-ass movie.
Yeah.
And if you want to put them all together and watch them all at the same time in order, and you'll find that you are having an absolutely fantastic experience. It's almost like watching a television series that was made over 22 years. Ishmael's Ghost. Outstanding.
So we also have China's Salesman from the Chinese director Tan Bing. Now, I had to talk about this on Film Week, and tell you, it's one of the worst films I've ever seen. So here's the idea. This is allegedly based on a true story involving cell phone sales in Africa. I really don't know how to make that sound any less ridiculous than it is. There's a Chinese company that's trying to get a contract somewhere in presumably Uganda, even though nothing about where they are it looks like Uganda. It's clear it looks more like Mauritania than Uganda. Anyway, and they're trying to get the cell phone contract in the country, and there's all kinds of corrupt stuff going on between the two, and then there's things explode into a civil war in the country, and somehow, for some reason, you've got Steven Seagal, who's like an American guy that runs a bar there, And then you got Mike Tyson, who's some kind of angry tribal leader, and they contrive a battle between Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson early on, where Steven Seagal is clearly too fat to be involved in this, and Mike Tyson's dialogue just sounds horrible. Like, you can tell Mike Tyson is trying to hit his marks.
Yeah.
He's not walking
And
like he would
what's
normally
bizarre
mark.
is
He's
when
walking like, I know the camera's there, and I'm going to walk very carefully to hit my mark. Sit on bench.
Yes.
Right? He's so self-conscious. I just want to cry.
Dialogue. And what's terrible is I've seen that one-man show that he does.
Yeah.
He is absolutely wonderfully personable.
Yeah.
When he's not engaged in this acting thing he's doing.
Yeah.
And all they needed to do was say, Mike,
well,
just be Mike.
He's all when you see, for example, Ip Man 2, which he is in, and has an amazing fight scene in which Sammo Hung choreographed. Look, he kills it with the choreographed fight.
Yeah,
he knows how to do that stuff really well. I mean, he will hit his mark. He's better doing the fight than walking. Like if you give him direction and you throw a punch, this, that, and the other, he nails it. If you say walk from the door to the bench and sit down, he's done.
Yeah.
If you give him dialogue, there's dialogue. I mean, I can't even. There's no point in going into how ridiculous this is. No. But clearly, this is the way that a lot of Chinese movies are getting financed these days. But this thing is losing a ton of money in China. And it's apparently a well-known story in China, the hero cell phone dude. But anyway, it's just truly ridiculous. And again, we're just talking about Steven Seagal and Mike Tyson. And that's not even the story. The story are it's all about how the heroic Chinese guy saves the country and manages to secure the cell phone deal all at the same time.
You got to wonder what did the posters look like in China? Who's on those posters? I mean, I imagine Tyson and Seagal's
well, the star of the film
on.
is Dong Shu Li.
He's the big thing on the box.
Yeah, I'm sure he's the big thing here. But when I told Mark, I sent Mark an email about this, and Mark, here we're going to let Mark have a moment on the podcast too. Mark sent back a story. A friend of his had worked on a Seagal film and said that there was this is how fat Steven Seagal is now. Yeah. Somebody said, okay, so you're going to walk through the door and you're going to go and you're going to sit down at the desk. And Steven Seagal said, I have a better idea. How about we start the scene and I'm already sitting at the desk? It's like, really? You just want to okay, all right, fine. Just sit your butt down and okay, whatever.
Sherman did a movie with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, The Foreigner. It was a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
He was already getting a little robust, and he insisted only doing hand work. Because Steven was good. First of all, let's not hang him out to dry. Steven was good, but he insisted because why? Because he couldn't lift his leg.
Oh my goodness!
Detective Bureau 2-3, Go to Hell, Bastards.
Yeah.
I love Suzuki. Sinjin Suzuki directed this, 1963. So much fun. The post-war period, the 20 years or so. After the war in Japan, in Japanese cinema, was an absolutely fascinating period. Not only did you get those Godzilla films, which were all a commentary, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all kinds of things. You got films like this, which were also a sort of commentary on cultural colonialism and the way that the East was going so hardcore West. So these films are all referencing Batman and James Bond.
Suzuki was so much of it is about that.
And it's kind of campy and kind of funny and a little violent and there's commentary in here about just American and Western society in the first place, even as these Japanese filmmakers and actors and Japanese culture is usurping all of these sort of American tropes into their cinema. And it's just a fabulous thing to watch. Anyway, this is very good. Check it out. It's Detective Bureau 2-3, Go to Hell, Bastards! !
So we have another from Arrow, and that's from Arrow Video.
Yes,
that's from Arrow. And we have another Arrow box set here, which is going to send spaghetti Western fans absolutely to heaven. This is unbelievable. This is the complete Sartana. Now, there are a lot of legendary figures in spaghetti westerns. Obviously, Man with No Name, the Clint Eastwood thing, Django, Ringo. There are a lot of them that are all part of this lore. Sartana may be less known here. Sartana is more intense and darker than any of the others, and there are aspects to Sartana that are borrowed from other genres as well. And he plays cards and does interesting things with cards, and there's a real mystical quality to the Sartana films. It's really, really terrific. And so this is the complete Sartana, 5 films in total, which consist of If You Meet Sartana, Pray for Your Death, I Am Sartana, Your Angel of Death. Have a good funeral, my friend. Sartana will pay. That's the title of the movie. And then lastly, Light the Fuse. Sartana is coming. And then you also have Sartana's here. Trade your pistol for a coffin, which is a little bit silly. I mean, they all have moments where they verge on a silliness, but they all have moments that are really, really brilliant too. So anyway, it comes with a booklet in a beautiful case and so many extras. It's impossible to go into them. There's stuff that where you have people talk, where they situate them in the context of the spaghetti western movement, aesthetically and in terms of the culture that they represent. It's just they've all been restored. The color is fantastic. They're absolutely gorgeous. Blu-rays all. And there are fantastic interviews on here as well. It's just if you're a spaghetti western fan, if you're a spaghetti western completist, and you want something that represents the totality of the movement and the era, this is essential. This is just a wonderful, wonderful box set from Arrow Video. So bravo on them.
You gonna knock off that other box real
quick? Yeah. Let me hit this one too. So as good as that is not the best box set this week. The best box set this week comes to us from, of course, Criterion.
Yeah.
It's like Criterion can do no wrong. This is just genius, and I can't tell you, I could live with this for a month. This is Dietrich and von Sternberg in Hollywood. One of the greatest collaborations in movie history. Joseph von Sternberg and Marlene Dietrich. Oddly enough, not the movies that these are American movies. Uh-huh. These are two German expats in Hollywood making some of the greatest films that either of them would ever have anything to do with. And they are all legendary movies. We have from 1930, Morocco, from 1931, Dishonored, 1932, The Incredible Shanghai Express, 1932, also Blonde Venus, that same year. Maybe the best of all of them is The Scarlet Empress from 1934, and then The Devil is a Woman from 1935. It's an amazing period, all compressed really very tightly into just 5 years. And this also includes a new documentary on Dietrich and about the influence that she had on feminism generally. There's also a 1936 Lux Radio adaptation of Morocco that features Dietrich and Clark Gable. And then there's this amazing 1935 publicity short featuring Dietrich and Travis Banton, who was a great costume designer. And then, it's just tons of stuff. There's an interview from television in 1971 with an aging Marlene Dietrich. It's all really good. But again, the extras are not what you're getting this for. You're getting it for the movies, and the movies are tremendous, and the transfers are great, and the Blu-rays are just they're pristine. They look absolutely great. So Dietrich and von Sternberg in Hollywood. You got to get it. Criterion Blu-rays.
I grabbed this one to do just for the heck of it. This is just another one of those little nostalgia films for me.
I know.
One Good Cop, Michael Keaton. And I did the junket for this movie. It's like this is like 1991, one of my early junket movies. And I just remember hanging out with Michael Keaton like all day.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but he and I just and we had this little thing going.
Yeah.
And I just I hung out with him all day on this movie. One Good Cop. Now, Haywood Gould, this guy who directed this movie, wrote and directed this movie. Now, Woody, and I knew him too from way back in the day. He was a much older guy than me. But, he kind of put me under his wing a little bit and taught me a whole lot of stuff. And Woody goes all the way back to Boys from Brazil and Rolling Thunder. He wrote the screenplays for. Yeah. Worked on Equalizer. Remember the TV series Equalizer? And then years later, I meet this other guy, a friend of mine, Neil Cohen, who worked on. We interviewed Neil.
Sure.
Who worked on Equalizer and wrote the screenplay for Cocktail, the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
And eventually, sort of, wheedled his way into a situation where he could direct a movie. Knocked off this movie, One Good Cop, starring Michael Keaton, which was a movie that I always liked. I just really liked it. Audio commentary. You got director Haywood Gould and a few other people. And Anthony LaPaglia was in this movie. It was just one of those little movies that you could get made. Yeah. In the early 90s, when you were doing stuff. I cannot remember. I do not believe he was Batman yet.
Yeah.
When he made this movie, right?
No.
He was not Batman
not
yet. Right? He was still coming off that whole comedy thing.
Yeah.
And this was sort of like a cop movie, not a comedy per se, and it was a neat little movie. And he made this little transition there. One Good Cop, Michael Keaton.
Wonderful, wonderful release from Classic Flicks. This is part of their Silver Series 1, the complete Hal Roach comedy collection. Thelma Todd and Patsy Kelly. Thelma Todd and Patsy Kelly starred in 21 shorts from the 1930s, and they're all absolutely wonderful. Now, here's the thing. Patsy Kelly, probably less well-known than Thelma Todd, but both of them really talented, wonderful. And it was this is all sort of what Hal Roach did. He paired people up. He looked for the comedy combinations. I mean, he had a real knack for that. He was a great kind of mini mogul at the time. And the original shorts were Thelma Todd and Zezou Pitts, who did a whole bunch of shorts in the early 30s, and then he later found Patsy Kelly and replaced Zezou with Patsy, and it was even better. It was just wonderful. These are some of the funniest shorts from the period, and they are sort of with women. Most of the shorts we think of male teams, and this is really, really wonderful stuff. So this is really a terrific artifact from the period. And here's the thing with Thelma Todd. Every single day, I drive by the building that was Thelma Todd's restaurant. Yeah. Every single day. Yeah. Same building. It's been there. It's protected. It's protected architecture. It's being remodeled again as we speak. It was owned by the Catholic Church for a very long time. They had their movie production company in there. And it's a new place in there now. Who knows what it is? But every day I drive by that, and I feel connected to Hollywood history. And if you don't know the story, Thelma Todd was, dating. She had a restaurant, and she was dating a gangster, and she was also maybe seeing a certain co-star. And anyway, there was a whole thing that happened, and Thelma Todd wound up dead, and somebody else wound up
29,
dead.
Only 29 years old?
Only 29. It's one of the famous Hollywood murder, maybe suicide stories. You should look it up. Thelma Todd. It's a whole thing with the garage and the staircase and the car, and there's a whole thing that goes with it. It's really amazing. And I have visited all those locations because they're all there walking distance from Thelma Todd and from the old restaurant location. It's great. You drive by it every single day. And so it's wonderful to actually connect to the living Thelma Todd as well, watching these shorts. They're wonderful, and it's an early reminder that women could very often be funnier than men, and this era doesn't remind us of that often enough.
Yep. That was the case. Things were different than one would think. Yeah. Director's cut. This stars Penn Jillette. This was one of those crowd-funded movies.
Oh dear!
But it's got Penn Jillette in it, and it's got Missy Powell in it, and a few people. And they pulled together this thing. It's really about this guy who wants to be a director, and he kidnaps the star of this movie, played by Missy Powell, so that he can. And it's just a big dumb stupid mess of a movie, but it's kind of funny. And there are a few people in it that you don't get a chance to see very often. So if only for that, you might take a look at this. It sort of lives in the vein of those old, I don't know, Toxic Avenger movies and all that kind of stuff. You can kind of tell.
It's got a trauma thing.
Got a kind of trauma thing going on with it. A lot of bonus features on it, too. So, I don't know, if you're a Penn Jillette fan, if you're a Missy Powell fan, if you're a fan of this style of film, give it a go.
We got some. We're probably going to wrap out here. Twilight Time and some Warner Archive stuff. I'll hit the Twilight Time titles first. Twilight Time just keeps finding such interesting stuff. It's like every month I look forward to what is Kino, Twilight Time, Olive, and Criterion. What are they going to pick for any given month? Yeah. It's always a surprise, and it's always really, really interesting. Those four companies. So the first one here is a George Cukor directed Marilyn Monroe movie called Let's Make Love.
I just saw it the other day on.
It's so good, isn't it? Yeah. This is from 1960, and it's exactly what you would think. It's got all the great talent involved from the era in it. Jerry Wald produced it. Written by Norman Krasna, George Cukor directed. Tony Randall is in it. It's absolutely a wonderful musical comedy from the era, and it's just a straight up musical comedy. Yves Montand playing this billionaire is just absolutely perfect. It's just a perfect stereotype. You get great cameos. I won't even tell you who the cameos are from. The cameos are terrific. Cole Porter did the music, songs from Sammy Kahn. It's just it's really, really good. Let's Make Love. Then we also have Take a Girl Like You, which was made in 1970. It feels very much like a 1970 movie. It has Oliver Reed in it. We were just talking about him earlier. Yep. That generation of British actors. They're just so great. But really, it's Hayley Mills who makes this. And Hayley Mills is trying to be basically a grown-up at this point. She's paid her dues. with all the Disney stuff, and now she's going grown up. And it's a she does basically what Annette Funicello and a lot of the others did, and even what they still do, Britney Spears and whoever. You go for something that tackles the sexual mores of the day and things that it's not risque, but it still pushes some buttons and
puts you in a different perspective.
Puts you in a different perspective for sure. So it's got a lovely score, which is featured here as an isolated score track by Stanley Myers, and you know what? It's a wonderful pairing, Haley Mills and Oliver Reed. My Sister Eileen with Janet Leigh, Jack Lemmon, and Betty Garrett is also quite good. This was made in 1955. It dates a tiny bit, I think partly because of Richard Quine, who directed it, not one of the most legendary directors of the time, really kind of a workmanlike guy. It's based on Ruth McKenney's autobiography, or her autobiographical stories, as it were, and it probably should not have necessarily been a musical, which it is. But you have some great performances in it just the same. Janet Leigh is good. Jack Lemmon, Bob Fosse shows up for some strange reason. Most notably, it was co-written with Richard Quine by Blake Edwards. So if there's anything charming in it, I would credit Blake Edwards. And then lastly, My Gal Sal. My Gal Sal is I had not seen in a long time. This was made in 1942, directed by Irving Cummings, and it doesn't date as well as I had hoped it would. It's a biopic of a songwriter from the 19th century named Paul Dresser, and Victor Mature plays Paul Dresser here. And it is I was never familiar with who Paul Dresser was. I'm still not particularly familiar with why Paul Dresser was significant. He was one of those legendary figures of Tin Pan Alley at the time. That Gershwin came out of Tin Pan Alley, and Scott Joplin came out of Tin Pan Alley, and I think Jerome Kern may even have had a foothold there. So a lot of these figures went on to be really significant in music and musical theater and musical films even into the 1930s. So Paul Dresser, not really on my radar for that. So without necessarily knowing his significance, you're watching this because of the actors, because of the people in it. Rita Hayworth is the Sal of the title, but it's not about Sal per se. That's the weird part of this. So she's sort of his muse, as it were, and she's very, very good. But again, it feels a little bit dated. So, and maybe also shouldn't have necessarily been a musical. Anyway, it still is a classic Hollywood movie. 1942, My Gal Sal from Twilight Time. All of these are available, by the way, from TwilightTimeMovies.com.
I'm going to leave Superfly for you because you saw Superfly.
I did.
I'll knock off the Colossus of Rhodes real quick, which is a Sergio Leone film. We most often associate Sergio with the spaghetti western, but this was an interesting movie. Rory Calhoun plays Dario. In the film, it's set in 220 BC or something like that, and the giant Apollo has been built to guard the harbor. It's coming in. It's this whole sort of sinister plot that's going on. It's a very, very sort of interesting, large-scaled film for the time. The casting is perfectly insane. Rory Calhoun as a sort of Roman warrior makes no sense whatsoever. Special features including a historical commentary. 2 Weeks in Another Town. This was I remember this. I remember, believe it or not, watching this extremely edgy movie, Kirk Douglas movie, with my mother back in the day. And this is like 1962. It's about this actor who was in an asylum. He was in a car accident, and he was an alcoholic, and he went away to a sanitarium for about 3 years. He comes back. He gets offered a job in Rome by an old director friend played by Edward G. Robinson. And it's just supposed to be a little job in this movie, and Robinson's career is coming to an end. His producer is sort of pressing him to finish the film under budget. And this young actress, played by Sid Charisse, is in the film. And what goes on there becomes sort of interesting and a little sinister. Vincent Minnelli directed the movie. And it's a very, very good, very sophisticated movie about the sort of underhanded, dark and backhanded sort of things people did in the movie business. Set in 1962, as this guy tries to make his way back. It's sassy and a little bit sexy, but it's a little bit dark too. Interesting. Vincent Minnelli movie, 2 Weeks in Another Town. Kirk Douglas, Edward G. Robinson, Sid Charisse.
And we have Superfly.
Superfly.
We're gonna go out on Superfly because yes, I reviewed the new Superfly on Film Week a few weeks ago, and which is not bad, by the way. It's not.
No.
Which I was
finally
shocked
got
by.
around to checking it out.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
It's you know,
right in a bunch of ways that surprised me.
So here's the thing: what they did, the new Superfly, and I won't get into reviewing the new Superfly, but they took all the characters from the original Superfly, transplanted them to Atlanta and into the present day, and they rewrote the story and the characters to be more relevant to the present day. They kind of found something timeless in it, which I give them all the credit in the world for. It winds up basically being a Joel
Silver
movie, which it is. He produced it, but it's you know.
I like what you said on the radio show about how it's a movie that is conceived for the 90s.
Yeah,
yet it is set in the present day.
It's basically
while referencing the 70s.
That's it. It's a movie originally made in the 70s that's been remade by a guy with 90s sensibilities for the present day. So it sort of lives in these three eras at the same time.
You can see it and feel it. It's very interesting.
The original, and what it doesn't have, of course, is the amazing Curtis Mayfield song score, which is one of the most legendary collections of songs ever attached to a movie, and which makes this movie. Now, Ron O'Neal kills it here. He makes it. He lives this character. Yeah. He plays Priest beautifully.
A character relevant to the day. What's that? 72. That was 72, right?
And the thing about this is what people forget is that there's a dynamic between Shaft and Superfly. These are movies directed by father and son. Gordon Parks directed Shaft. Gordon Parks Jr. directed Superfly. Gordon Parks was a self-made man, brilliant photographer, had lived as an expat in France. And Gordon Parks Jr. was the beneficiary of his father's success. Gordon Parks Sr. made a movie that was a studio film. Gordon Parks Jr. made a movie that was independent. Gordon Parks Sr. made a movie that was about a black man who was on the side of law and order. Gordon Parks Jr. made a movie that was about an anti-hero who was against the law, and the law was crooked.
Yeah.
And these are all really interesting dynamics, which you could probably speak to more than I could.
Well, the generational dynamics are just right there.
And these are two generations, father and son, representing two very, very different reactions to the civil rights movement, which was just sort of percolating. It was we were coming out of the Civil Rights Act at that moment in the early 70s. And, for me, I'm watching these movies as a white guy, middle-class white guy, but it's very clear that there are two different things going on. And I'm not connecting to them on an ethnic basis. I'm connecting to them in terms of what they say about power structures and what they say about, who's a hero and who isn't. And in one of them, it's cut and dry and black and white. Black hat, white hat, good guy, bad guy. In the other one, it says, you don't know who to trust. And the world is a scary, really, really unjust place.
Yeah.
And that's
and you got to make your own way. At the end of the day, you have these two different, tragedy of the loss of Gordon Parks Jr. as such a young man.
Yeah.
But you have these two different black men who are both at trying to enfranchise these black men at the that's both what they're doing, but they find these totally different roads to the enfranchisement of the black man. Shaft goes through the hierarchy. Shaft is going through the system, and young Gordon Parks with Priest and Superfly not going, but they want the same thing. They want to come out with heroes who are defining their own destiny. And that's what they're both trying to do. But they find two different ways there. Very interesting stuff, man.
And the songs themselves differ in that regard. You listen to Isaac Hayes, and then you listen to Pusher Man.
Yeah.
Those two songs. It's and Pusher Man is one of the songs that they actually kept in the new movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, Superfly from the Warner Archive Collection is just sensational. Lots of great extras on here. I mean, lots of great extras because they clearly understand the relevance of this. There is One Last Deal, which is a retrospective documentary. And the commentary on here is from Dr. Todd Boyd of USC, who has always been one of the foremost scholars of the representation of black people in American cinema. He even wrote it in a book, Am I Black Enough for You? Popular Culture from the Hood and Beyond, which is the quintessential book of all. It's a great book, isn't it? It's a great book. And then there's also a little Curtis Mayfield ditty, a thing called Behind the Hog with Les Dunham, and then they even talked to Ron O'Neal, who is really just an amazing historian of the period too. So it's great. That's Superfly from the Warner Archive Collection. And with that, we are done. And we will see you next week.